Good morning, everybody. A very warm welcome to you from SWARAJ for Cities. We are all city dwellers. Being a native of Bengaluru, I can say so much. In the last few decades, we've seen this city literally crumble. And the question on most of us who are here, the minds of those who are present here, is literally why this is happening. Could it have been prevented? What can we do now? And truth be told, it's not just the story of our dear Bengaluru. It is a story of every town and city that is rapidly developing throughout Karnataka. It's the story of Belgaum, it's the story of Mysore, it's the story of Mangaluru, it's the story of, and then it's also the story of every small tier 2 and tier 3 cities like Chitradurga, Dharwar, everywhere. So are there lessons in it for us from Bengaluru? Can we prevent this from happening to other cities and towns? There is and this is not just a local template, it is also a global template. This is the story of cities around the world. Many cities have faced this rapid growth a century before us, and some have learned from it. They have changed their trajectories of planning and governance. Can we learn from them? What are the trends worldwide? And the biggest challenge of all, it's not just about the congestion of our cities. It's not about the breakdown of governance of our cities. We have a bigger problem that is emerging, that one of the climate change. As you can see today, our television screens are filled with images of forest fires, heat waves, floods in higher percentages than before. And large cities in China, in Europe are all affected. Many cities in India are affected. Climate change earlier affected a huge population which is rural, and they've been migrating in millions. About 5 to 6 million people in India alone have been displaced by the climate change phenomenon, which is something we don't take cognizance of. And where do these people go? They come to urban centers. And the IPCC report says that urban centers will be the worst affected by climate change. So these people who have run away from their situations in rural areas will now again face the same problem. History will repeat, mostly for the marginalized and the poor in these cities. So if you look at all of these contexts, we have a huge amount of thinking to do and action to do. Are we up to these challenges? In today's conference, we are fortunate to have a lot of eminent personalities, planners, experts, and even government officials who are joining in various sessions. We hope to address these issues and hopefully find a lot of answers to these. In this session, we have Dr. Jeevan Kumar, who will chair the session. Thank you, sir, for joining us. He's the chair of Civic and political scientist. We also have Dr. Ravindra, who will be delivering a keynote address. We are waiting anxiously to hear that. And before that, I'd like to invite Mr. Kirtee Shah, the president of INHAF, Habitat Forum INHAF, who will give us an introductory note on the SWARAJ for Cities webinars, which is also a collaboration with the Rethinking City series on INHAF. I now give the floor to Mr. Kirtee Shah. Kirtee bhai, please, would you address the...
Yes. Can you see and hear me?
Please hold on a second, sir. The screen is being...
Yeah.
Oh, you are also online. Okay.
Yeah, I'm online. I'm in Ahmedabad.
You are in Ahmedabad.
Yes.
I thought you would come here. No?
No,
okay. Yes, Mr. Kirtee bhai. Yeah, you're on the screen now. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, friends and colleagues. Sandeep bhai has given you background and the context of this event. Let me tell you that I'm doubly delighted to see this hybrid event. Some people present in the hall in Bangalore and some other people in different parts of the country, even I understand different part of the world. That is the marvel of technology. It has cut distances and it has neutralized locations. Does not matter where you are. You could be an equal partner from wherever you are located or sit. And I am the beneficiary today of this technology. Unfortunately, I'm not able to travel to Bangalore from Ahmedabad due to ill health. But for the technology, I would have missed this very important and very big event. Now let me come to introduce this thing as Sandeep Bhai suggested. Now, if you have seen the poster announcing this meeting, you would probably have noticed in the top corner, in bold letters, two words. One is rethinking cities, and second, number 92. And you must be wondering, as Dr. Ravindra must be, what is this 92? I would briefly tell you what these two things are. This meeting on urban governance in Karnataka, though different in character, as it is hybrid, both virtual and physically present, is 92nd event of the webinar series that INHAF and its multiple partners are running for close to 2 years. 91 webinars have been completed. This is 92nd. And all this on one overarching theme called Rethinking City. We're talking about rethinking city globally, but largely rethinking Indian city. We are, during this period, over 40 themes and sub-themes have been presented and discussed, and more than 400 urban experts, professionals, specialists, academics, administrators, and community groups have shared their views, perspectives, ideas, concerns, and solutions. By any stretch of imagination, this has been a massive effort on the urban issues. I understand one of the first in the country. And this is by civil society, small NGOs. And in order for context setting to this particular meeting, let me tell you why we are doing it, what is the purpose, and why we are holding on for last 2 years on this assignment. Now, INHAF, and of course, many partners webinar series on Rethinking City has 4 underlining assumptions. Assumption first, despite being engines of growth and centers of culture, technology, knowledge, and global attention and investment, our cities, our Indian cities, are not in pink of health. Be that small cities or big cities, be that industrial cities or commercial cities, be that district town or state capital, or be that environment or water or governance or planning or SUMS or housing or rivers or climate change. They're all saddled with major challenges. So this is the first part of the assumption. It's not really assumption, this is a part of accepting fact that our cities are faced with major challenges. Number 2, the cities as they are and the way they are growing and developing do not look like meeting the challenge of unprecedented urbanization India is witnessing. It neither looks like providing safe and healthy quality of living to 870 million people who will be there in our cities in 30 more years, almost double than what it is today. Nor does it look like delivering on 7 to 8% growth, economic growth the country expects to get rid of its poverty and emerge as an economic powerhouse. That's a second assumption. The third, the government effort, and there are many, alone will not adequate to ensure healthy, livable, productive, inclusive, and sustainable cities. And the fourth assumption is this: the wider society, the human capital outside the government system has the required skills, knowledge, experience, and even motivation to contribute meaningfully and search for alternative approaches and new solutions. So, this webinar series is a part of a wider national societal effort aimed to bringing in not only fresh ideas and new perspectives, but also new voices, new collectivism, new togetherness, new partnership, and new energy in articulating the need for and ways to rethinking our cities, both redefining the urban challenge and finding more effective ways to addressing it. It is taking the urban challenge to people. It is preparing people to engage and contribute. It is making the urban development challenge a societal challenge, a people's challenge, along with that of the governments. The SWARAJ for cities intends focusing on issues of urban governance. 5 organizations that include INHAF, Citizens Agenda Bangalore, SWARAJ, Civic Bangalore, and Making Model Gurgaon have joined hands to address the city governance matter. We hope to run a series of meetings to address various aspects of the governance challenge. We hope to involve many. This is the second event. We had one earlier, and first ever, which is hybrid. We need your support. Let me end this by telling you now how we manage our urban challenge will largely be determined by how we govern and manage our cities. The questions are many, and they are we ready to absorb in a satisfying and correct manner and look after almost 400 million people who will flock to our cities, mostly big cities, in 30 more years by 2050? Are we ready is the first question that we need to answer to absorb this phenomenal growth that is taking place. Are we prepared to raise US $640 billion in coming 15 years to fill in our urban infrastructure investment deficit? Please remember that under JNNURM, not so long ago, for a relatively better conceived, better planned, and better managed program of urban infrastructure investment, over a period of 10 years, India managed just in investment only $14 billion. JNNURM over 10 years, we invested $14 billion, and we need $640 billion to look after our infrastructure deficit. Are we prepared to restore the rivers, including Ganga and Jamuna, the holiest of our rivers, and countless number of other small, and let's talk about rivers, to good health. Can we restore health to our rivers? We have knowingly and with open eyes converted our God's gifts, our major assets, into major liabilities. And are we determined to correct hundreds of years of damage through misdirected development, largely and fueled by unsatiable greed that is causing climate change and global warming? We are up against the nature which has been harmed, and cities are on the forefront of the damage that has happened. Good governance has some answer to these challenges. And 74th constitutional amendment is just one of the beginning. And that happened 25 years ago, and we must run because we are lagging badly behind. And let me kind of last word. We have promised to ourselves healthy, safe, green, people-friendly, sustainable, inclusive, caring, efficient, productive, just, and compassionate cities. How do we achieve them? How do we deliver them? That is the question this series of webinars and meetings are supposed to answer. And how far we go, how much we succeed, will depend on how many joins and who joins. So with that, I hand over to Sandeep to carry this further. These are my introductory remarks, and thank you very much for everyone's presence here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kirtee Bhai. You've raised a lot of insightful, pertinent questions. We hope we find the answers over the deliberations of the day. As we spoke of the 74th Amendment, I'd like to ask the audience a question. How many of you here have heard of 74th Amendment before and not today? Please raise your hands. You've heard of it before, okay. Who are the ones who have not heard of it before? It's almost half the audience. Okay. It's good to know that many of you are aware of it. Just briefly, this year is the 30th anniversary of the 74th Amendment. The legislation was passed in 1992, and I'd allowed to say we are celebrating 3 decades of it. Unfortunately, we are reminded that 3 decades later, most cities and towns in India have not adopted 74th Amendment. What is it? It's simply a framework of how a city should be planned and how it should be governed. Both the frameworks are present in none less than our Constitution. The Constitution lays this out. It's a law which every state in India is literally ignoring or violating. So it's something we need to be aware of and to know and to correct. And given the context of, as Kirtee Bhai brought up, it's not purely about governing, it's not purely about managing the cities. In an overall context, it's about the economics we are pursuing. It's about the kind of growth we are pursuing. Our Honorable Prime Minister keeps talking of a 5 trillion economy. Yes or no? So if we have to go after these GDP targets, what is the cost we're willing to pay? Will we get away from the consequences that China is facing or the West has faced before of even more consumption, even more growth, even the need to manage even more waste, and of course, a whole lot of other consequences. So is it also about the choices we have to make as a society? And since we have adopted SWARAJ for cities as the title of our series, we are reminded of SWARAJ. There's another book called Hind Swaraj. How many of you have read this, Hind Swaraj? There are 4 people in our audience who have read Hind Swaraj. Okay, 5. I'm so sorry, sir. The 5 people in the audience who have read Hind Swaraj. Unfortunately, this is the book that inspired millions into joining the freedom struggle of our country. It is the book that laid out the vision of Swaraj by Gandhiji almost a century ago. And he clearly says a few interesting facts in this little booklet. It's only 100. In fact, today, every guest who's coming on stage today, we are gifting a copy of Hind Swaraj as a token. This book is an amazing, interesting short book in which Gandhiji actually laid out his vision for what our country should be post-independence. And if you look at everything he said, we've literally gone in the exact opposite direction, which is the only reason I would request all of you to please read it. In my own opinion, I feel Hind Swaraj should be the national book of this country, if for nothing else, to be a guiding principle. And the fact that we have ignored the book that inspired our freedom fighters who fought for Swaraj, not for freedom. They fought for Swaraj, and Swaraj means self-rule, having control over our commons and our future. Have we achieved Swaraj? That's an open question. Almost 75 years after our independence. So in this little book, the reason I brought it up is Gandhiji very clearly states that urbanization will destroy our planet. This is the talk of a visionary. 100 years before, he foresaw what we are facing today. He also said factory production will destroy our planet. These are the talks of an environmentalist or an ecologist, as you would term them today. But this is what the father of our nation wrote. Have we actually acknowledged what the father of our nation warned us about 100 years ago? Have we acted on it? Have we included them in our policy making, in our planning? Because choices are all that matters in this. Otherwise, we are fast hurtling towards what many scientists say, a mass extinction event. So not only will we humans destroy ourselves, we are going to destroy every single species on the planet for a few million years. Isn't that a great achievement? So I think it's ever more, there's a need for urgency today to actually examine every choice when we actually think about how we will intend to live, how we intend to earn, how we intend to govern, how we intend to plan, and also what is the economics we need to pursue. Do we have answers for all of these? I'm sure these are mind-boggling questions, but if you don't keep asking these questions often enough, will we even arrive at an answer? That is the question. With those brief, I'm sorry, it became a long comment. I'd like to invite Dr. Ravindra. Meera. Dr. Ravindra, as many of you might know, is a retired IAS. He was the Chief Secretary of Karnataka. Post that, he's been very active in the civic space. He's chaired the Public Affairs Center. He's also the chairperson of the Society for Sustainable Development. Center for Sustainable Development. And thank you, Dr. Ravindra, for having joined us today. Are you ready to start, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having joined us. We give the floor to you now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandeep, Mr. Kirtee Shah, and the others who have organized this seminar or conference. At the outset, I must apologize for not being present physically at this event, very important event. I would have liked to be, but unfortunately, my health doesn't permit. I'm not in a position to move out at present. So, nevertheless, Katyayani was keen that I should give the keynote address, and perhaps she was expecting a very scholarly written text and asked me whether there is any matter for circulating, printed matter. Unfortunately, no, because I couldn't find the time or energy to write out. So what I thought was I'll share some of my thoughts, very key important issues on urban governance, particularly pertaining to Karnataka, which is the theme of this particular seminar. And because I think before going to the subject proper of urban governance in Karnataka, let me recall what Mr. Kirtee Shah was saying. I think I fully agree with him that today our cities need rethinking. Because when we say cities need rethinking, what we need that we, the people and the thinkers, we need to rethink about how cities can be reformed or redeveloped or whatever it is. Because they are in such a state of affairs now, I really don't know whether, first of all, we cannot rebuild. They're all, cities which have grown up, some of them over the centuries, some of them are recent. And so, what is the sort of method we need to adopt to make our cities livable in a very short way? And but at the same time, as I said, our challenge is growing because the urban population is growing, and migration is growing, and from about 430 million today, urbanites, it will grow to 500 and odd by the next decade, and it is expected it may reach about 700 to 800 million by 2050, which will be bigger than the population of US and Europe, perhaps. So what is the role of the government? What is the role of the people? Because as Kirtee Shah said, government alone cannot solve these problems. Are we ready, he asked? I must say, as of now, we are not ready. Because our thinking is confused. State governments, each of them has their own thinking. Central government has its own thinking. And the people have their own. So we need to, in a way, rediscover what are the issues, major issues, and are the challenges that we are facing now, and what are the ways in which we can try and overcome them. Now I find this seminar has listed 3 separate themes, one pertaining to the 74th Constitutional Amendment, second relating to citizen participation and governance, and the third relating to the capital city, how to fix the capital city. All the 3 are very important. And so let me begin with the 74th Constitutional Amendment. The Constitutional Amendment of 74 aims at decentralization in cities or in urban areas, while the 73rd Amendment focused on decentralization in the rural area, or what we call now panchayats, Jila panchayats, Gram panchayats, and so on. Interestingly, I must say, in Karnataka, the 73rd Amendment or Panchayati Raj institutions have taken deep roots and has made tremendous progress compared to many other states. That's mainly because the pioneering efforts made by one of the former chief ministers, Sri Ramakrishna Hegde, and his able deputy Abdul Nazir Shah. So they brought in the Panchayati Raj Act, decentralizing powers to the panchayats even long before the 73rd, 74th Amendment, I think in 1983 or 85. So that is on one side. But when you come to 74 or urban decentralization, Karnataka's record has been very poor. The government somehow has not bestowed adequate attention on decentralizing powers to the cities. So I would suggest that this seminar, instead of merely repeating what 74th Amendment says and saying we have not done this, we have not done that, the question must be asked, why have we not been able to implement? Although it is 30 years, as Sandeep said, it is the 30th anniversary. So is there something wrong with the 74th Amendment itself? Or is there something wrong with the government? Because it is a central legislation, you must remember. Constitution has been amended. But the actual implementation lies in the hands of the states. Because that is what the 74th Amendment says. It says that the state governments or the state legislature may bestow on the urban local bodies such powers as they deem fit. See, this is the most important thing that we need to remember. So, next question comes in, why is it the state governments have not done this? It is not that they have not done at all because it is a constitutional amendment. Some amendments have been made to the Act to be in conformity with the Constitution. They have said, yes, we have decentralized. There is a list of subjects in the 12th schedule, 18 subjects. See, for formality's sake, they said, yes, we have decentralized. We have given powers in all these matters. But if you look at them, actually, there is very little power bestowed on the ULBs or the municipalities, either politically or administratively or financially. For today, so the urban local bodies all over the country, including Karnataka, are faced with serious problems of financial resources, local autonomy, and power to actually do things on their own. So I would say that within a limited time, I can't expand. I would say even to Mr. Kirtee Shah that we have to revisit the 74th Amendment itself and ask some fundamental questions. Although it is a constitutional amendment, the central government has done it. That has not enthused state governments. So should we further amend the Constitution and give that power also to the center? Which again means that center will be accused of grabbing power, centralization, which is not right. I also don't agree. In a federal state, it is the states, and there is a state list in the Constitution. Urban development, housing, they're all state subjects. They have to take the initiative and do it. But how to make them do it lies with the state government itself and with the people of the state. So what have we done? To what extent are the people responsible? I must say that civil society in Karnataka and Bangalore in particular is quite active. And they have been bringing pressure on the state government time and again. SWARAJ, for instance, SWARAJ, has been playing a big role. And so are so many other NGOs, resident associations, even other bodies. I have myself been part of them. I was one of the founder members of Civic, actually. But government is reluctant in some way. And my own view is that, the issues at stake in urban areas are so high, state governments would not like to part with their power, especially on the capital city. See where wealth is growing. Bangalore is becoming prosperous economically. deteriorating on other sides. Bombay is becoming prosperous. Delhi is becoming prosperous. But if you look at the state of the people, the ordinary poor, the slum dwellers, it tells you a different story. So how do we reconcile these aspects? So anyway, I would leave it at that and say, let us rethink the 74th Amendment and what can be done to convince state governments to part with at least some of their power. The second part, I would say, in 74th Amendment is the 12th schedule itself. See, the 12th schedule contains 18 subjects. And while, according to the government, it is all part of the, municipal subjects or local government, there are so many overlapping subjects, overlapping with state government's power. For instance, I would say economic and social planning. State government takes the responsibility of planning for the whole state, which includes cities. Similarly, some afforestation, social and economic development. So I think we need to clarify these aspects and then go. Hey, Oscar, not. Sorry for the interruption. So these questions need to be asked about even the 12th schedule. And the third point about the 74th Amendment is on planning. See, it says that we should set up a metropolitan planning committee for metropolitan areas like Bangalore or Bombay, etc. And a district planning committee for the other smaller cities. Cities in the sense, district planning includes rural and urban, which of course makes sense to me. But then to what extent are the towns, small towns, receiving necessary importance as part of the DPC or District Planning Committee? And I find even the district planning committees, all of them perhaps are constituted on paper, but they are not active. And so we need to go into their role, both there and MPC, Metropolitan Planning Committee also. In most of the states, they are being compelled to set it up mainly because of pressure from the government and the court orders. In Karnataka also, they went to the court and there is a directive and therefore they have set it up, but it hardly meets. So these aspects about 74th Amendment, I would say, require rethinking. Number two, let me come to citizens' participation, which of course is very important, which is where the civil society is raising its voice. People like Kirtee Shah have been raising their voice for decades. Many others, SWARAJ, many others. But then I would say, there has been a lot of progress, so there's no doubt. Number one, for instance, setting up the ward committees. Ward committees at least have been set up for namesake in many cities, including Bangalore. So these ward committees, to what extent are they empowered? Some functions have been given to them, delegated. But what about their composition? Who are the members? The elected councillor of the area is supposed to be chairman of the ward committee. That is so. So a lot depends on the interest that councillor takes. First, he has to be persuaded to call the meeting and call the right people. The right people must become members of the committee. The selection process differs from state to state. So that requires a kind of a review, the role of the ward committees. That can be strengthened. And some ward committees, I must say, are playing a very good role, important role in Bangalore, but majority of them don't. For instance, in my own ward where I live, I hardly find the councillor active. You can't even see his face, nor is the MLA active. Although the resident welfare associations are active. I was myself president of the coordination committee of resident welfare associations in Indiranagar. So we used to meet and take up issue, but unfortunately this is another issue, Mr. Kirtee Shah, you need to understand. The role of the elected representatives are not showing enough interest. How do we solve them? We want more democracy. We want more elected people. So this is another issue I would say you need to take up. Similarly, of course, there is again kind of a formal representation given in the planning committee, Metropolitan Planning Committee, MPC, as well as DPC. So 2/3 of the membership is to be filled by the elected member of the municipality and corporation, and including smaller local bodies and panchayats. So that process may be there, but meetings are hardly called. No serious subjects are taken up for discussion, and therefore I find that urban planning or metropolitan city planning at the macro level has hardly received any attention. On the other hand, what we now have is master plan prepared by the planning authority that is there in almost all the major cities. Although no statutory town has a master plan at all, that's the difference. So these master plans are again have not delivered goods. Number one, they are outdated. Master planning itself is an outdated concept. When Western nations, where it started, UK, they have given it up. So we need to again do some rethinking there. But master plan at any rate gives you a basic framework, a plan, land use features, changes in land use, zoning regulations. So we go according to that now. Let me tell you the fate of Bangalore. The last master plan, which was up to 2015, that was called a revised plan. The next master plan, 2031, has still not seen light of the day. The draft plan was prepared some 4 or 5 years back and sent to the government, and government is just keeping it, neither giving approval nor suggesting modification. And now, every time there is a change of government, they want another kind of plan. They want to scrap the old one. Now, this is the state of affairs in a city like Bangalore. So what is the net result? Not that development has stopped. Development goes on without planning. A lot of unauthorized constructions, nobody supervises, no control or encroachments. So this is what is happening, the state of affairs in a city like Bangalore. So the question is, how effective are the institutions we have already created? MPCs, DPCs, ward committees. And for instance, in Bangalore, earlier they set up some zonal committees and all. Okay. Now, that is where governance comes in. But if you look at the actual state of governance, it is so poor. Now the new government, which has just come a few months back with the majority, has for once a deputy chief minister as a minister for Bangalore development. So, because he is appears to be quite active, very enthusiastic about doing something for the city, changing the face of the city. But what has happened? Now suddenly they have come up with a new slogan called Brand Bangalore. What is Brand Bangalore? Brand Bangalore is already there. Bangalore is known as the IT capital of India, Silicon Valley of India. These are the brands. San Francisco is called the Silicon Valley of the world. London, financial center of the world. But here, Brand Bangalore, what they have done is They have listed everything under the sun, right from all the improvements required, roads, footpaths, transportation, solid waste management. So ambitious thing to transform all aspects of the city. I don't know how long they'll take. First of all, where is the plan? So these confusing things, is happening. I had written an article on this, which has come in Deccan on last month, 7th, I think. I had requested Tiani, if possible, to circulate it. And if you have some time and you find it interesting, please go through, because it received a lot of responses, saying that what I have said is we need to focus first on basic things. Basic things. First, pothole roads in Bangalore, footpaths where we can't walk. Then traffic guidance centers where road crossing is impossible. No safety. So these are the things that which you understand first. Waste management. So that is about governance and all that. But anyway, I think in governance, I don't know how much more time I have. Maybe I'll take another 5 minutes or so. See, I would earmark or at least focus on 3 or 4 major issues where government has to pay specific attention. Number 1 is the water problem. See, outside and then water, Bangalore, like many other cities, is water deficient. Although we get good rainfall, but unfortunately, because of the growth of population, we are going on adding to the water quantity is increasing because we are adding new projects. Kaveri after stage 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we are thinking of stage 5, but that is not perennial, that will stop. So we need to focus there on water conservation and water saving, because underground water is getting overexploited. So today in Bangalore, like many other cities, I think we have the dilemma or irony of having some section of the people having water bottles, fresh water, paying for that water and drinking. There are others, the poor, the slum dwellers, where they have to go and stand in queues at the public tap and get water. So that is one. Secondly, I would say Bangalore is now called the worst affected city in terms of traffic congestion. Probably it is one of the most traffic congested cities in the world today. So transportation and traffic together needs some attention, because otherwise the pollution is also increased. And number of cars and vehicles is increasing like anything, private vehicle. While we say we want a public transport to be promoted, which is the right thing to do, unless simultaneously we reduce or curb the use of private vehicles, we cannot solve the traffic problem. We are going on giving licenses to new vehicles. Some of them nowadays, they're all big vehicles, SUVs and all that. So how do we regulate transport or mobility in general and pay more attention to common citizen? This is in walkways, road crossing, especially the aged people, children and all that. Road safety, I would say. So these are things which need, that is one. And of course, a very important issue probably any big city faces in terms of urban land and housing. So although everyone may have a roof on their head, but the type of housing we live in, again in big cities like Bangalore and Bombay, Ahmedabad, the well-to-do are well off. They stay in good houses. Today, we have gated communities, luxury housing, and so on. But the lot of the poor, the informal workers, continues to be awful. So affordable housing was the slogan, but affordable housing again has not really autonomy. Something is being done, some states and all that, but it is still to go a long way to provide some decent housing, I would say, with at least, room to live, to kitchen and toilet and some decent housing. So this is another issue that needs to be addressed. And the last critical issue, I would say, is environment and climate change. I think somebody referred to. So climate change and environment, we need city-level studies about climate change. And the environment is deteriorating like anything, pollution. So these 4 issues need to be addressed on the question of governance. But the last important issue on governance, all these problems will be there, but they need to be addressed by whom? That is where the local government comes in, state government comes in. The institutions, local government institutions, how strong are they? They are some of the weakest, and municipalities are very weak, except some big corporations like Bombay, etc., where they may have some certainly good resources. But state government devolves funds under the State Finance Commission. But that is not enough for infrastructure development and all the services. Mostly it goes to meet salaries. So how do we address the question of strengthening these institutions? There are 2 aspects. One is the political, the other is the administrative. See, even here, the state governments have a lot of power centered in them. So what is easy to do is to decentralize those powers, delegate more powers administratively to the ULBs. That can be done. That is doable. But to address the political power question is another issue altogether. Because here again we have mayors, elected bodies, etc., but they don't have executive power. Maybe in Calcutta they have a mayor in council system where they have some power. I mean, that's okay, mayor in council. So what sort of a political system, political governance system do you want at the city level? My own preference has been for directly elected mayor with executive powers, but with checks and balances. That means he must also have a committee, mayoral committee, let us say, like the cabinet at the state level, entrust each member with a certain portfolio or solid waste management, or housing, transportation, like that, that is one. And bring many of the functions of the city under that overall umbrella. You can have specialized agencies, because today, as Kirtee Shah said, the age of technology, we have to use technology, otherwise we'll be nowhere in the world, because we are also a global city. So we need to use technology. And so how do we mix this? Represent, or even if there is a mayor in council, how do you give adequate powers to the political executive and make it accountable? The single most important issue in local government, or even other governments, I would say, is accountability. I think this needs a big debate by itself, because today accountability is diffused. You can pass the buck from one end to the other. Okay, my last thing, this is about fixing the capital city. I already referred to some issues in Bangalore. So fixing the capital city is indeed a very big question. As I said, now brand Bengaluru and all, we should forget about that. Concentrate on the key issues and mobilize enough manpower. Today, the local bodies in Karnataka, particularly Bangalore City Corporation, lacks manpower. Its ratio of staff to the population is awfully low compared to even other corporations, maybe even Ahmedabad or Surat, which may be smaller. There they have a better system. Gujarat cities are better. Here it is very bad. Similarly, Hubli, Dharwad, Mysore. So how do we strengthen the manpower? There we have to recruit new people. We need professionals to manage local bodies, not the old simply recruit some assistant engineer, promote them. And today at the helm, we find only promoted people or deputed people from the government whose knowledge and skills are not updated. So you need to upgrade the skills of the manpower in the urban local bodies and in all other parastatals also. Parastatals also, I think like, housing board or development authority, they should come under the overall AG of the municipal corporation, larger greater municipal corporation. So let me end by saying that, the blueprint is already there. In Bangalore, there are more than a number of committees have given their reports, starting from my own first about 20 years.
Audio.
Metropolitan draft governance bill for Bangalore, suggesting all reform, but has not received adequate attention at the government level. So all you need to do is to go back to them, get the material, read these reports, and initiate the reform measures.
Sorry to disturb you. Could you please repeat the name of the bill?
I'm going to stop here. Probably I overstepped.
No. Could you please repeat the name of the bill? The connection froze. We couldn't hear what bill you were referring to. The report.
Bill is right. Okay. It is called the Bangalore, or now you can call it Bangalore, Metropolitan Governance Bill. See, it is so we included not just the municipal area. It is the entire metropolitan area and even the metropolitan region. See, that is another aspect we should look into when you address capital cities, especially Bangalore, Bombay. So of course, all major cities now have a metropolitan region developed. MMRDA in Mumbai, CMDA in Calcutta. Similarly, I think Ahmedabad, Hyderabad, they all have. So the capital cities are spreading it because there is no control over expansion. Peripheral areas, management itself has become a big problem. And many unauthorized constructions are coming up all along the highways. In Bangalore, being a radial city, you travel any direction, highways. It appears as if Bangalore is extending. Where is it going and ending? Who is managing them? So these are all questions to be answered. So right thing is include the entire metropolitan region, which is well defined, which includes rural areas, etc. There are answers to all this, as I said, that and what can how can this new authority, manage these things, address different issues, and bring some semblance of order and planning to this large metropolitan city. Otherwise, it's very difficult to fix Bangalore city's. First thing to be fixed are the basic amenities. People feel safe, roads safe, road crossings safe, reduce the number of private vehicles thronging the city and the city center, increasing commuting time, provide some decent housing to the poor and the migrants. Migrant populations are left high and dry, as we witnessed during the COVID. Many of them have come back. So these are the fundamental issues we must first address. And then of course, brand Bangalore or brand such things will take care of themselves. The private sector, the IT community, they're all quite strong. They build brand Bangalore, not the government, not the local body. So they know how to only to facilitate them, enable, but them also so they don't get into problem as it happens now and they threaten to leave. We will leave Bangalore and go. That is what will happen if you don't provide them their own ease of doing business and ease of living. Ultimately, I would say ease of living is the most important thing to be looked at, or the most important aspect to be addressed. And what this ease of living is will differ from city to city, small city, medium-sized cities, big cities. So we have to, each city is unique. Hill cities, now temple cities, and they all have economic potential. You see, place like Tirupati, Tirumala, which is the richest temple in India. You know, their earnings go into thousands of rupees, crores of rupees. They run a university. And I'll tell you a very interesting thing. See, there are a lot of small towns which can also become local economic development. So here in Karnataka itself, and Channapatna makes toys. Now that has decayed. That can get out. Similarly, you know, let me refer, there is a small town called Bhagyanagar, not many people know. They make these hair wigs, you know, which is in great demand and exported. We are not paying attention to that. So those small town economies can also be developed. So there are a number of these things we need to pay attention to them, and a lot of issues to be considered and a lot of work to be done if we really want Swaraj for cities. Sorry to say, there is no Swaraj for cities. I don't know that you want to keep the name and aim for Swaraj in cities or change your name. When Swaraj for cities? That is the question. First of all, even in another 2 days, we will have Swaraj for our next Independence Day is coming. So, unlike Gandhi and all earlier saying Purna Swaraj, there can never be Purna Swaraj for cities. For another reason that, you know, it's not total autonomy we cannot have. It has become an interdependent world, global world. So we need to understand the role to be played by state government as well as the global institutions. So we need assistance from where we need to connect to others. All these things also need to be addressed for a city like Bangalore. That is another issue. International, global. It is a global center. How do we promote that global brand we already have? That is another issue that needs to be addressed. But they need, as Kirtee Shah said, again I repeat, rethinking. Let us rethink governance in these various facets. I think, I hope you now have some material for your own discussion and debate in this seminar today. Let me wish you all the best. I am sorry I'm not really well to sit here and observe other proceedings. If possible, maybe see. I'll try to join sometime later. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Please do join in whenever you have time, and you can watch the other sessions. That was, you've covered a lot of ground and has given us enough questions to ask throughout the session. We're running a little late, sir, so we have to run along. Please do stay with us if possible. And please get well soon too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I hope that's provoked a lot of questions. I'm sorry that we are slightly late on time, but we hopefully will cover that during the afternoon. Quickly, let's go to Dr. Jeevan Kumar. Sir, if you'd like to summarize the session, and you can use your mic. You want to use the dash? Yes.
Thank you, Sandeep. It's been a very informative, very educative inaugural session, as you would agree with me that it has been a very informative and educative session. This is a big moment actually for all of us, those of you who are here, those of you who are listening online and so on. The whole concept, as was pointed out to us by Kirtee Shah of INHAF, the terminology that has been used, rethinking cities, the concept of Swaraj for cities. This is all big time, and let me compliment the imaginative people behind looking at how we can rethink cities, how we can rethink urban governance, and hopefully make our lives better. The ease of living, as Dr. Ravindra referred to, needs to be improved very obviously for those of us who are living in the urban areas. Should I speak louder? Okay. Okay. Now, as chair, I think I had a certain responsibility to moderate the proceedings, to perhaps indicate the time limit for people and so on. But since it's hybrid, so Kirtee Shah, of course, made it very brief and concentrated on the important areas that are being done and what requires to be done. And if all of you are going to stay on till evening, you will have a very good idea as to what these stakeholders, including civic, have put together for the government. It's very ambitious, but needed. And I hope we have people from government joining us in the other sessions to share their views, to tell us what is the problem and how we need to take things forward. Dr. Ravindra, as usual, very comprehensive and gave us a lot of things that we need to discuss. We didn't have time for question and answers. I'm sorry for that. We need to wind the session because the speakers, as I can see for the next session, the chair Kala was here very much on time. I can see Anil Kumar, I can see Matthew, I think somewhere, and the other panelists. The important ones are here, at least the ones whom we keep listening to and reading about. Now, I would like to take about 5 minutes, Sandeep, if you don't mind, Katyani, as chair, not just to summarize what has happened, because you have been very attentive and you know exactly what Sandeep told us, what Kirtee Shah told us, what Dr. Ravindra told us. Now, I would like to bring to the table, I would like to raise 3 questions. And given my background, I'm a teacher. I have taught. Political science and urban development has been part of my concerns. Incidentally, rural development has also been part of my concerns. So what I would like to do is raise 3 important questions, which come from where I come from, which I think we need to discuss by the end of the day. And hopefully it would help us to take things forward. I would call these 3 theoretical/philosophical questions. And it's very disheartening that I get the answer no to each of these 3 questions. What are these 3 questions of mine? 1, do local governments enjoy democratic legitimacy in India? Do they enjoy sovereignty in India? That's question number 1. Question number 2, what is the normative cornerstone of local governance in India? And question number 3, is there a comprehensive overarching theory of local governance that combines the urban with the rural? Now, these are 3 deep questions. I'm sorry if I'm complicating an already very complicated area, but these to me are important. And very sadly, the answers to each of these 3 questions is a big no. Let me begin with the first. I'm sure there would be disagreement on this. I'd love to interact with you. If not in the session, I'm going to be there throughout the day. Do local governments enjoy democratic legitimacy? No. Do they enjoy sovereignty? No, despite the 73rd constitutional amendment. Sorry, 74th. They don't. Do we have our facts right? I was surprised that not many people raised their hands about, are you aware of 74th amendment and so on? Now, we have raised a lot of hype with the 73rd and 74th amendments. 30 years is a long, fairly long period of time. We are revisiting 74th amendment. And we seem to assume, because they figure in the constitution, the 73rd and 74th amendments, because there's 12 schedules, 11th and 12th schedules, that local bodies have been constitutionalized. That's the term that we're using in the constitution. My answer is no. My answer is a clear no. They have not been constitutionalized. Local governments are still created by state governments. They're creatures of state governments. And as long as they're creatures of state governments, they exist at the beck and call, at the whims and fancies of the state governments, despite the amendment. They're creatures. And therefore, if you're looking at the supersession syndrome, you're looking at why elections are still not happening. It's clearly because they lack constitutional status. They lack political, democratic legitimacy. They lack sovereignty. They're not sovereign bodies. If we were serious about this, 30 years ago, what we should have done was amended Article 1 of the Indian Constitution which we have not. And therefore, the sad status of local bodies, both urban and rural perhaps are doing better, but urban is because of the fact that they lack constitutional status. Had we amended Article 1 of the Constitution, Article 1 still says India is a union of states and union territories. Full stop. So where does this leave urban and rural local bodies? That's the answer to the first question. We need to look at this also if we're looking at revisiting the for them. Question number 2, is there a normative cornerstone for local governments in India? You do get an answer, and the answer that I've been getting is expediential, existential. Answer in 2 words, you get the answer. What is the normative cornerstone? The answer you get is functional efficiency. We are very unhappy with the way local bodies are functioning, and we want them to become more and more efficient, and we have a huge wish list to give them. And at the last session, we're going to place before the government, hopefully they'll be here to listen to us, but then copies have already been sent to them, Katyani, Civic, and okay. Now we have this wish list of how functional efficiency could be brought into the functioning of local bodies. But should that be the normative cornerstone? And I'm using these words very carefully. That is expediential cornerstone. It's not normative. It is existential. Where, when we're looking at normative cornerstones, would we find, for example, and I have a fairly big list, where do we find sustainability? Where do we find equity? Where do we find justice? Where do we find fraternity? Figuring as cornerstones, normative cornerstones of local governance in India. Now, if you're going to tell me it does figure, Kirtee Shah referred to that, Dr. Ravindra referred to that. Now, these are byproducts of what we're trying to do. So what I'm saying is, if we are serious about bringing in a different way of looking at, and in this case, urban local governance, we need to bring in, and top on my list is sustainability. And by sustainability, I'm not meaning what we're really talking about here. I'm talking about, for example, the concept of carrying capacity. Do any of us have any idea, including the experts, of what the carrying capacity means in the context of an ecosystem? Do we have? I don't think the powers that be have any concept of carrying capacity. Do we have any concept of regeneration? We still teach our children the 3 R's. To me, the 4th R is so very critical in the context of climate change and so on, where we talk of regenerating our natural resources. Who said, Purandaradasa, Kereya Neerannu Kerege Chelli, which means you need keres, you need water in the keres, Kereyalli neer irbeku, Kereya Neeranna Kerege Vapasu Chellabeku. What are we doing in our cities? Do we have, how many water bodies were there when I was young? How many water bodies? We are killing our lakes, killing our water bodies, converting them into real estate. And we're talking of, we're not talking of regeneration. Only when the Kaveri is close to running dry, will we in Bangalore talk of or think of regenerating groundwater. So should these not be the cornerstones? And I'm happy Sandeep referred to climate change at the beginning itself. So if climate change is a huge calamity waiting to befall all of us, I think as the normative cornerstones, we need to bring in the concept of sustainability in a very comprehensive fashion, not the piecemeal fashion we're looking at. That's issue number 2 I'm raising. The last issue, do we have a comprehensive overarching theory of local governance that includes urban as well as rural? And this is where although I'm happy that Sandeep referred to SWARAJ, referred to Gandhi and so on, I think what I'm going to, I'll just take 2 minutes if you don't mind, Sandeep. I think I'm going to make all of you squirm. If I'm going to quote Gandhi, not in SWARAJ, but elsewhere, and we in cities, I think must squirm and do much more than squirming in order to understand what Gandhi told us. And what did Gandhi, I'm quoting from Gandhi. The blood of the villages is the edifice on which cities are built and sustained. I don't see you squirming enough, so I'll repeat that. The blood of the villages is the edifice on which cities are built. Gandhi. I've added this and sustained. Okay? Gandhi somewhere else said, towns exist to exploit the villages. The third issue is important for me because if I were to bring Marx into it, there's a constant expropriation of the economic surplus from the rural hinterland and appropriation by the urban. Constant, it's happening all the time. And this was Marx in a slightly different context. If I were to bring in Dadabhai Nauroji into BIC here, there's a drain of wealth, which was happening differently earlier, which continues to happen. Are we aware of that? Drain of wealth from where to where? I don't have to explain. If I have to bring in the neo-Marxist argument, there is a constant, quote unquote, development of underdevelopment that is happening right before our eyes, but we are in cities and we don't want to see that happening. But if, like me, you get a visiting professorship in a rural development university and you talk to the rural areas, you go to rural areas, you do rural immersion with them, and you realize, my God, what are we doing to our villages? What are we doing to our villages? This whole university where I'm teaching now was set up to prevent or to stem rural-urban migration. Rural-urban migration. We have 10 courses running and 2 more courses already begun. Every 2 years when these students are going out, I ask them, what will you do with all these degrees that you have got? And the answer that I'm getting is, sir, Bengaluru ke bandhirte. And I tell them, my God, we're running all these courses to prevent you from coming to Bangalore. Sir, yenide namge. New degree kortira, new namge kelsa kortira. And if we don't have the answer to that, we are asking them to come to Bangalore. Is Bangalore able to, our city is able to do that? And therefore, what I'm saying is, unless some of these issues, which make us very uncomfortable, are also raised by us while we are trying to redefine, reinvent cities, and we're trying to look at SWARAJ for the cities, I think we need to look at why are we so very compartmentalized in our thinking, and can we, as the last issue that I raised is, unless we have an overarching view of development itself, where we bring it all together and look at development from a holistic perspective, I'm afraid what we're doing would be very compartmentalized. We may still be doing things which we do not wish to do. Thank you very much.
Katyani madam, would you like to do the honor of giving our guest? All of you. Yeah, I'll do that. There goes our first copy of SWARAJ to our guest. Thank you, Katyani madam. No, but thank you so much. I thank all the esteemed guests who have graced our first session. I apologize, it's slightly gone overboard on time, but I think we can't have any regrets on it because there's so many learnings from them. Quickly, I just want to summarize the questions we'll be carrying on from the session to the other sessions. One is, of course, excellent point raised by Dr. Ravindra that now it will be about rethinking. From rethinking cities, we'll also have to rethink the 74th Amendment. Of course, Dr. Jeevan also echoed that. Then in planning context, we'll have to address the rightly raised by Dr. Ravindra as well, the regional aspect of planning. And this is very true because when we focus on planning Bengaluru, we forget that the peri-urban is rapidly developing. What is outside the city limits is developing farther than the city. And sometime in the future, we take that into the city in a completely broken down state. So it's quietly, and Dr. Ravindra spoke about this public regional governance bill. And that becomes so important because the planning has to be very regional. And also even transport plans, we need to have a regional outlook. You can't have a city transport plan, because every day, most vehicles that are running around in the city actually come from outside the city. A lot of transport is actually coming from outside the city and going back, and this puts a whole load on the city. So we should have actually a transport network which uses mass rapid transit, like all the cities like Tokyo and other wise cities do. And we need to do something on a regional aspect. A key point is that our government now is talking about Singapore, because they want to develop a underground tunnel road, and they refer to Singapore. But then what we forget is, and we'd like to take this into the last session, Singapore has abandoned its underground road projects in 2017. You can Google, it's on Wikipedia. We are trying to take a mistake of Singapore's, which they themselves have abandoned. Singapore is moving towards a car-free city. They are discouraging cars, and Singapore follows a master planning process where they have a master plan for 50 years. We don't have a master plan for 1 year. Singapore has 55 lakh population, but it has only 10 lakh private vehicles on its roads. We have a 1.5 crore population, and we have 1.2 crore private vehicles already. Including all other vehicles, we'll have about 1.5 to 2 crore vehicles on our roads. We are not copying Singapore. We are doing the opposite of Singapore in the name of Singapore. Such farces should not happen. So hopefully we will take all of these questions to the remaining sessions.